and I have a playbook for it. So I'm not just reacting, but I'm dealing responsibly with the situation. So what that is telling us is that our channels of engagement with our various stakeholders must be very intense, must be very vibrant, must be very consistent, so that in some ways we get to know things. It doesn't mean that you will not concede goals. You can win a match and still concede goals. There will be some things that will slip through the cracks, but I'm just saying, please, being paranoid has got to be part of how you do business. That's the newsroom mentality. Dealing with breaking news. How do you think these CNN and the rest get to the place where the news is breaking? Because they too, they anticipate. What if something happens here? What if a volcano? If you go to CNN now, they'll tell you they have a playbook for dealing with volcanoes. They have a playbook for dealing with various kinds of accidents should they happen. They have a playbook for coverage of being where, in a place like America, there's what you call gun violence. That's why they can bring those news. That has got to be the mentality and the approach. You want to say something, please? Okay. That's got to be the mentality and the approach. It means that, my dear friends, we've got to encourage ourselves a little bit more to lift off beyond our role as public servants. That's just where I'm going to. Otherwise, we'll constantly be in firefighting mode, even when we are innocent, all because of a few bad actors. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything. Someone wanted to say something the other time. You still want to say something, please?
I wanted to say we have to be on the lookout. Shouldn't go sleeping. Our ears should be on the ground.
Absolutely. So let me ask this question. I really meant to ask this particular question of Shippers Council and then the PRT. About 2 months ago, NPA increased its rates by 15%. Of course, justifiably. I mean, they justified they are not having done that in over 30 years. And then, given that the port infrastructures are actually deteriorating and there's a need for that. But what was the most dominant outcry in the media? It was the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. They dominated the space. And it was really giving NPA a lot of heat. Because the argument was very simple. What you have just done, NPA, is to make life more costly for Nigerians. And you see, that is a very simple story that sticks. You don't even need a specialist to craft that press release. You don't even need a press release for that. By increasing your rates, it means that everybody along that value chain will also increase. And who bears the cost? By the time you answer, the generality of Nigerians, the common man, pays for this. But in fairness to them, it was justifiable because they have to, the money has to come from somewhere. Otherwise, there will be no more ports if we continue at this rate. If the system collapses, what happens? The rate we are all complaining about spending more. We will still come back. We will still all have to spend that more. Only God knows under what circumstances. So I'm putting a question to the Nigerian Shippers Council. What was your position in that development? Because one of the things I did as I was preparing for this paper, I was searching, looking for a statement from Shippers Council.
Listen, let me help you.
And there was radio silence.
Let me help you.
Okay. I'm going somewhere with the issue of silence, but yes.
You know how it happens. Now, you see, we have a problem in this country. the position of MPA is that I'm the landlord, I'm in charge of the post, and nothing has changed. The position of the federal government is on Nigerian
Shippers Council.
Now, the federal government has told MPA severally that once it is issue of charges, Shippers Council must be taken, they must tell us what to do. Without considering that, without listening to Shippers Council, they went and raised the charges. Now, Shippers Council played safe. We don't want this interagency trouble.
Okay.
The next thing you will hear everywhere now, they have their money, they have their strength. They may even go to presidency to malign everybody in Shippers Council. You know them.
Yes.
And you know everybody in that place now. Once you give money, the news changes. Shippers Council went on the ground and wrote them a letter that what you did, if you had passed through us, we could have come together to say, justifying it, because we know after 30 years, there are some instruments that should be there, and we justify from this, when this naira was this, when this cargo was this, when this, and everybody will be taken into consideration, and it will be a flow. But they didn't do that. So the Manufacturers Association came in and fought them,
and they let the
came back to us and came back to Shippers Council that look, this, say, don't worry, there's nothing, we will sort it out within the agency level.
Okay. All right. So a very important point that you've made, and you've given us a very full background. But you see, MPA decides to do what it wants to do. I want us to treat these scenarios as just neutral developments in terms of things happen. Our interest is the consequence, the ripple effect. If I am a freight forwarder, I'm blaming Shippers Council. Pure and simple. Because Shippers Council, you are supposed to be looking out for me. I hope you get the point I'm making. I'm just giving you a sense of, because you want to build your brand. Your brand is taking all sorts of hits, and chances are that we don't seem to recognize just happening. That's the thing about brands. A reputation over time, it just forms. And we think that it happened at that last moment when someone pushed it or tipped it over the precipice. No. Some things have been building, and then we just got to that apex. So the point I'm making, you've made a very important point. Shippers Council did take action, but in the final analysis, when you look at it critically, if I am playing in this port economic environment, the summary of what has happened was that I did not see anything. This is where communication is coming in. I did not get anything in terms of a narrative that would have come to me from the port economic regulator on this. And the overall summary was that of silence. Now, you could have worked behind the scenes, but how was that translated? Because we are talking brand and perception now. The issue now is perception amongst your stakeholders. That's where I'm going to with this. Could we have, because as I said, I even had to call a few of my friends in the maritime press. What happened? Why? I mean, Shippers Council was quite silent on this. The question is, do you think with this particular scenario, Shippers Council could have acted differently? Not in terms of MPA did what it did, beyond your control, but what could you have controlled better as a public relations unit, as a communications unit, to ensure that your brand did not suffer for another party's decision within that ecosystem? Could you have done anything differently? Let's talk about it. Like what?
For example, I think the Amazon meeting.
Okay.
After meeting
With the stakeholders. Okay. So we could have gotten that out.
Where all the stakeholders were being invited to the first council. And the MPA came, they explained their position, why they have to increase the tariff, which is 25%. And the MPA man, I was in the meeting, I covered it. He said, when he get to his boss, in the office that is going to discuss it with the boss, where a meeting will be held with the chief executive of the maritime agencies. That was what the man said, the representative of the NPA.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking. What could we have done differently with the benefit of hindsight?
One question, sir.
Yes.
Like this issue, the NPA, by the time they want to sell most of the same house, they already use innovative, and they, from when they are selling this, why they want to increase the tariff. And secondly, they've already used some certain examples that, okay, these are the things they've already used learning process from other agencies. Why did they increase their own? And they've already built all these things into their claims where this thing must be increased. And because Shippers Council, let me just be neutral here. Because Shippers Council wants to be able to say, you can't do this one to my people.
Yeah.
You can't do this one to my people. But when you look at why NPA want to do some certain things, and you know that it is on the right proportion that they want to do, because I want to use two things, because two tariffs came out at the same time. That is the NPA tariff and custom tariff. But immediately they go against it, because both of them said it has never been increased for longer period. But the customs code has been, it's just like a new one that was want to introduce, give to the public. But the NPA have already used some certain innovative, they've already used a learning process before they can be able to say, okay, this is why I want to do this thing. Then we now look at it and now say, okay, if this thing is justifiable, so people are against it, which side are we going to do? It looks like a crisis.
It is a crisis. So the question you should ask yourself, you see, there are a number of things I want us to look at here. Number one is, what is your role in this entire space?
The role, the is to protect me.
Yes, that's what the law says you should do. Exactly. And so the next question is, to your stakeholders, the people you are playing to, the people you are serving, how do they perceive you? There are two things here. And so your role in this department is essentially to ensure that there is an alignment between your core function, your core mandate, and the perception. That is what gives you your identity or builds your brand. So that is our interest, and that's why no matter what happens within the NSC, Nigerian Shippers Council, when you are part of those conversations, your voice must be strong enough in making it very clear, because most times you get this misalignment. Things get done, eventually, it's almost like saying that, well, majority will have their way, minority will have their say, that kind of stuff. But the ramifications is where I'm going to in all of this. We can't stop NPA if tomorrow they decide they want to increase, or they want to take any other decision that has economic implications. It might not be rate increase. It's true, they are the landlords. You are regulating within their space. That's the truth. You are regulating within their space. You're trying to, because the work that you're doing is bringing sanity into that space where there is always chaos, potentially chaos, all sorts of chaos, whether it's tariffs or what's it called now, damage to goods or services, delays, all of the typical problems that go with the business of logistics and shipping. That economic context is very volatile. Just like life is volatile at sea when it comes to maritime safety and security. You are the referee there. You are the referee there. And so, making sure that the perception of you to the stakeholders that matter the most is in alignment, that you are an unbiased umpire. How many of us, okay, let's say Arsenal is playing Liverpool two bitter rivals. You switch on your television, you see both teams. Who is the most important person? Who will be the most important person on that field? It's the referee. You'll be saying that this referee, this same referee, if it's someone that has built, that you have a bad reputation for, that you always lose whenever he referees, you'll be saying, this man again. And controversy. So the audience, the fans, keep one reputation. And invariably it sticks. Because that opinion spreads. Despite the fact that the man may have tried to be as unbiased as possible. That's where we are going to with this. Is to let you know that silence is also dangerous. Silence is also dangerous. Engage where necessary. Some things will happen. I'm going to come to you, sir. Some things will happen that you cannot control. We must accept that. We are communicators. That's why we have to be strategic. That is the value of strategy. That we don't have control over certain things that will happen, but we have control as to how we can respond to it and manage how it is perceived. So it's to ask ourselves and go back to the drawing board and say, what if another situation like this will likely present itself anytime soon? It might not be from NPA. It could come from NIMASA, another sister government agency.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Or it could come from even your ministry.
Yes, or terminal operators.
Or even from the House Committee on Marine. Even from truckers. So you see what we're talking about here. So sitting down, maybe doing your meetings every Monday, whether in Lagos, Abuja, these are the kinds of things you must say, okay, so what if somebody, all it takes is for a legislator to get up and just say, I want to move a motion on an issue of urgent national importance. Nigeria Shippers Council, and they just start talking, and then when you watch Channels News at night, you see yourself there. Free of charge. You are wondering, when did this happen? Do you have a strategy for those kinds of scenarios? So you must develop a playbook, and I'm encouraging these units to adopt the playbook development strategy that carries a variety of scenarios. What it will do is that it will expand the thinking and the mindset of everyone on this team. Because you are fighting a battle where you have all kinds of actors who in a bid to protect, and by extension, potentially gives you a bad name before your major audiences, in this case, the shipper. So this is part of how I want us to look at it. Please, sir, let me come to you. You wanted to.
Sir, is it not possible for the Shippers Council to tell all the stakeholders before any agency increases their tariff? It's supposed to come to Shippers Council before doing that. The situation whereby they do not do that and then they increase the tariff, can Shippers Council tell the freight forwarders not to comply until the Shippers Council to tell them, so far they are the regulator?
You see, that's a management decision. That's not your headache. Do you get the point I'm making in all of this? That's why I'm saying to you, you are in communications. A lot of the things you are called to manage are things that are beyond your level. In fact, they are things that you did not cause. But they have ramifications in terms of the image and in terms of perception. You don't know, there are some of the decisions might be internally made decisions. There are sometimes that decisions are made internally that are not necessarily, don't play out. They have what you call unforeseen outcomes that affect the image of the organization. Now, you don't have control over those calls. So don't bother yourself with that. What you want to do is that, okay, fallouts. Can we anticipate fallouts? Because I can tell you, even if as management, Shippers Council were to put those measures in place, there are always bad actors in every space. I need us to understand this if we are going to be effective managers of image and effective communicators. There are always bad actors in every ecosystem. No matter how well structured, how well organized it is, even when there are ramifications, consequences, and penalties, there are always bad actors. They seek to shortchange that system, to stress test that system through various ways that some of us have not even imagined. So when these bad actors strike, the problem is there are usually fallouts. And those fallouts have reputational consequences. They have potential impact on our brand, on our names, on us as an institution. Some of these fallouts can end up making us look irresponsible, as if we don't know what we are doing.
More like weak.
Or weak. I'm sure sometimes you hear your stakeholders as a reference say that I don't even know what Shippers Council is doing. Question is, communication strategy must be a lot more proactive. A lot more proactive. You must think of all these scenarios. You will never get them 100%, but the more you think about them, the more elastic this unit will become. And so when tension, pressure comes, you know the concept of elasticity, it may stretch you, but you'll be resilient enough to rise to the occasion. So it goes back to the first point that I started out with, that the paradigm, our own paradigm must shift. If we are expecting NPA to do at least be a good sport, be a team player, NPA is in the business of NPA. You get the point I'm making? The same way all other actors, the same way you should be in the business of Shippers Council. Protect the shipper. That is your goal. That is your mandate. So that, ask yourself, do you have, in terms of image perception, if you were to be like a superhero with a cape, would they put Nigeria Shippers Council protector of shippers? Do you have that level of image perception in your sector? Do you have that level of image perception? But that is supposed to be your brand. Protector of the shipper as a port economy regulator. You do that. The functional side is port economy regulation. But the perceptional side should be, I use the word should be, protector of the shipper, and by extension, protector of the Nigerian economy. That's your brand destination. That's your brand destination. But the question is, what is your current brand situation? Your brand destination is that you are the rescuer. It should be a case of Shippers Council to the rescue. Nigeria Shippers Council to the rescue. That's your brand destination. So there are two things we are looking at here. But your brand situation, we see that there's a gap. And we must constantly be working with this mindset. Are we protecting the shipper? Whatever happens, whatever comes out of this meeting with all of these people, whatever comes out of this, when the smoke clears after this tariff increase or whatever MP has done, will Shippers Council still be seen after all of it as they did everything to protect the shipper? And we saw it. And that's one more feather in Shippers Council heart into becoming that brand. That's why I said silence is dangerous. Because when you're silent, a feather is taken off your cap. When you're silent, in fact, in communications context, silence is often interpreted as complicity. I'm telling you, perception-wise, Should they did this to us? You people did not say anything. What is that saying? What is that telling you? That they are part of it. So you must fight for your reputation intentionally. And that's another point I want to make. Intentionality is very crucial in all of this. Regardless, yes, your sister agencies, fine. Working for the same government, that's true. But you have clearly delineated sets of functions. So the goal for you would be in all of these, okay, NPA, this is what you've done. We have a responsibility to ensure that our audience, in this case, the Nigerian Shipper, perceives us as working in their own interest and protecting them. So this is the narrative that we intend to put out there on a consistent basis with ample evidence so that they get the sense that we're doing what we need to do. So that is the PR function. Elevate what your management does through the power of narratives. See, there are ways. Let me quickly give you, I'm going to just give some suggestions to you. There are ways the PR needs to in an unconventional manner, sometimes, to ensure that you're building that trust, even in the midst of a lot of difficulties. And thankfully, head of PR is here. These are suggestions. They are not conventional, but they help in some ways. There are some meetings that you can intentionally embed is one or two stakeholders, even though the meetings or the functions were not for them. It's a PR move. It's not a management move. It's talking to management, this, we know this, but you know what? I think it's a good idea. Because one, you then convert some of those stakeholders as into your megaphone. To build your brand is not something you're going to do all by yourself. And it's not by our logos, the various things we print and adverts. And no, it's by organic human interactions, responses, and dealing with situations. Sometimes your story or your position can be better told because there were one or two stakeholders or shippers who were brought into a situation they would ordinarily not have been privileged to be in. But through the power of a strong PR unit, you're able to say, look, please, let's bring in someone, let's have at least one of the freight forwarders attend this meeting with NP or whatever it is you're trying to do. What it does is that it brings collective participation. You're not trying to build the brand all by yourself. The beneficiaries of your function are also playing a part in it. So it's got to be some unconventional thinking would have to come in. Please, sir, you wanted to say something.
No, I wanted to ask you to situate a situation. One, when you know, let's look at a little history about Nigerian Shippers Council. It was started in 1978. UNCTAD said, please, nations, go and start Shippers Council so as I can protect the interest of the shippers. And when it was started, they did their job diligently. Now, it was a military decision. In 2014, during the time of Jonathan, Shippers Council was made the Port Economic Regulator, executive board.
Yes.
Now, look at the scenario I want you to look at. There's one they call Stuart, Ship Owners Association. Yes. There was an infraction they did. Shippers Council went and said, no, you can't do this without having recourse to us. We dialogue over it. The next thing they did was to go to court, right? And the thing, I think up to now, it's still in Supreme Court. Just say you don't have that, right? Because you were not here. 2014 executive order is not
it's not a law.
It's not a law. It was an executive order. This thing Jonathan did without passing through the parliament. Now, again, I want you to look at the scenario where we are going into now. God willing, in the next few months, the Nigerian Shippers Council, the president will pass the law, making the Nigerian Port Economic Regulatory Agency. Now, this thing has passed through the Act of Parliament, approved by the Parliament, sent to the presidency for accept. if the president ascends it, now this is the first time ever Shippers Council will have authority to start.
To enforce, yeah.
If this law is passed, nobody can challenge it in the Supreme Court or any court of law that you are acting on your own, because it has passed through the Act of Parliament. Now, the scenario I want you to see is that, you see, some of the times, the public relations unit, there are some issues that will come up. They will look back where they are coming from, look back at the law established them at any point in time. And that is what happened when Nigeria Post Authority increased that time.
Yes.
He said
Yes, because
Shippers knew that even MPA will go ahead and tell these people you think they are having this, don't have authority.
Yes.
Who get the authority to be political or regulator without passing through the system? So these are some of the issues the public, when they want to stand and react, does that that's hindrance. But again, I want to look at
the
now
scenario.
We are looking at Imperial Bill to be passed in the next 2 weeks. Where do you think the public relations unit will now navigate to?
Okay, thank you very much. You raised a very important scenario. I also was aware of that scenario. I'm just being careful. I didn't want to raise it in our conversation because it can be sensitive at times. We know it's really more of an executive tool that Shippers Council has had to rely on. And then this matter, I think the issue is, I think it has come, that particular court case, I think there was a soft pedaling at some point.
Exactly, yes.
Because I think Shippers Council won the case at the and even at the one at Shippers Council also won at the appeal court as well.
Yes.
So I think at some point there was soft pedaling and all that. So these are some of the nuances that a communications team must manage. So here is what I'm looking at now as we anticipate the future. But then let me also put this out there. Think about it with regards to the strategic question I asked earlier on. What if that law does not get passed? What if?
We're Nigeria.
I'm asking you. What if? What if? This is how you must think. As strategists and as communicators, that's what strategic communication is about. What if it's not passed? Could it be possible that there are people lobbying for every legislation? There are those lobbying for and against. What happens if you're putting all your eggs in that basket? That is scenario one. I just want your mind to think that way. That's why I threw in that question. That's the only way you stretch yourself and think out of the box, become innovative in doing your jobs differently beyond giving out press releases and responding because something has happened. What playbook do you have for another 4 years of remaining Port Economic Regulator by executive fiat? So you know, that's why I mentioned earlier on that you know that the players in your ecosystem are big fishes. They know their onions. They can create pain. They have the means to play in the press, to use the media and whatever it is to cause you a world of pain. So how prepared is the PR unit to engage, to be a step ahead? You must know your problem customers in this ecosystem. From terminal operators to freight forwarders, who are your you must have a list for them that this party was there. Potential, don't be surprised if something is in the media in 3 days' time. So you beat them to it by leading a conversation on tariffs. You see, when you lead a conversation on tariffs, if the intention was tariff-centric, what it does is that you are setting the agenda. But if you then wait, they strike, we all start running helter-skelter. Isn't that what we do? We start running helter-skelter. So I'm just saying that in response to your question, I'm not going to give like a very direct answer to say do this or that. But I'm going to come back to challenging the thinking. When you have the thinking, you will give yourself options. If the law is passed, it strengthens you. But again, the law could be passed and execution, which is not your responsibility. Remember, you don't have any managerial execution function here. You're dealing with communication. If the management does not execute things in a manner that strengthens you, how do you handle it? Communication-wise. We are managers of outcomes here. Let's be clear. That's why, with reference to his question, what can Shepherds Council do? I said, no, let's bring our minds too. Our problems can be created from within, in as much as most of them are coming from without. That's the truth about it. So we have to stand ready to manage the reputational side, the communication side, and part of it is being proactive about it. So part of being proactive is not to overhype the issue. In case, what if it doesn't get passed? How does it leave us? Where does it leave us? So we are not driving at the political side of getting the law passed, but we should remain focused on what should be the function. Look, Ghana has a Shepherds Council, and it's functioning quite well.
And it was modeled from Nigerian.
Absolutely.
Council.
So clearly we are behind the curve. So my point to you is to continue to drive the kind of narratives that puts you in that role, with or pending the arrival of the law. There are times when people do things and the perception is higher. I'll give you a typical example. There are people that come into the organization, they work so hard, they put in their best, they do so well, they become so well known, and then you ask, in the minds of people, it's as if they've been there for 5 years, whereas they've only spent 1 year. Can you see that the perception is way higher? That's their brand perception is way higher than the actual fact on ground. So I'm saying that you have to drive the narratives. What are all those your wins in the areas of successful arbitration and resolution of port economic matters must be front and center. So I'll give you an instance. I went on your Instagram page. I was there 1 a.m. this morning. I just curiosity. So let me go to Shepherds Council. Let me just check. Because the world, so much is going on. And I checked from beginning to the end. I did not see a port economic regulatory, your port economic regulatory victories. And I'm sure there's a lot you have done. I did not see. What I saw, and I'm saying this as one who has worked in the same space, and looking back at the lessons, because they say hindsight is 20/20. That there are things, adjustments we can begin to make. Yes, because it's a government space, first order of business has to be that we project the set man, the chief executive, give him airtime, give him prominence and all that, because the standard perception or reasoning in the political ecosystem is that if he's seen or she's seen, work is going on. Create that bandwidth, designate it, and tick that box. But the crux of the function of the media team, the communication arm of the agency, is to drive the narrative based on the mandate it was set up and hand the value outcome, because that is what builds the reputation of Shepherds Council. So I checked, I was just checking, I thought I was going to see some freight forwarders, not just create space for chief executive visits, people courtesy visit and all of those things and all that happen, because the government space, many people come in, every day is always busy. But part of this team must be looking for your wins. and materializing the narrative in a way that is clear and easy to appreciate and ensure that they occupy media space. I just took your Instagram page. I went through everything from beginning to the end. Everything. I saw events. I saw a lot of the staff maybe speaking at one event. I saw all of those. All of those things are good, but they are activity. You now need what I call productivity-oriented narratives. What that will do is that it has its own way of contributing towards your brand destination. Because, put it simply, Nigeria Shippers Council is the rescuer of the shipper. That's all. You are it's very simple. In fact, the mantra should be Nigeria Shippers Council to the rescue. Like a Superman wearing his cape. That's what you are. And that's how you build your brand. What is a brand, by the way? Brand. Marketing 101 is simply a promise. That's all. Your brand is the promise that you are making, that you've communicated, and that you are committed to delivering upon. And as you deliver on it, you communicate it. And that strengthens your reputation. And over time, that's your brand. That's what it is. So we must manage this situation to ensure that there is a proper functional alignment between what we are delivering and how we are being perceived. So what ways do you think we can translate some of our wins into natural narratives that can be out there? And if you do that, I can tell you your Instagram page will probably more than double, because those will be real scenarios that people can engage with. Because as Hassan Bello used to say in those days, that we are all shippers. Once you put something in an envelope or whatever it is, you order something that it comes to you. Everybody is a shipper in one way or the other. So what ways do you think we can do that? How many of you have been to your Instagram page here in recent times? Someone is smiling there. That means she hasn't been there. You have. Okay, show of hands. How many of you have been to your Instagram page? Let's count. Let's take a census. Head of PR, so at least get to see your team and see what's going on. Okay, so let's say out of, maybe let's say 30% or 40% of the group. How many of you have watched your TV program on YouTube? So how many of you have tracked the nature? Am I wrong with what I just said about your Instagram page? So I saw. So in what ways do you think we can? Because you're the ones on this job. I can't really picture in full concrete sense all the issues you address. For instance, you said we had 6 complaints. One of them had to do with demurrage. Another one had to, what does it mean? It does. I get the point. It doesn't stick. The point I'm making is what does it mean? It's just like data, some information. But could you translate that into much more concrete narratives, storytelling?
Yes, sir.
That particular segment, if you can reimagine it and make it weekly, it's a good start. It's at least another component that helps your brand, because it's appealing to your ecosystem, those that need to know. Yes, please.
So I think we should just do like a turnaround, concentrate more on that, because that's the stakeholders we're dealing with. Then I think the other activities, you can now make them like more of tidbits. Okay, the ES executive visited these places. They will now tell that less time, and then concentrate more on that instead of giving the personality story of the ES, I think the stakeholders' interactions should be more like our focus.
Absolutely.
Because they are the ones that will now sell us out.
Absolutely.
They will
Yeah.
sell us out. They are the ones that will